Hello everybody, and welcome to the webinar on making strong and easy to remember passwords. My name is Ben. I'm an IT consultant here at ClearBridge, and I'm going to run you through a couple tips, recommendations, and best practices in making your passwords. So what we're going to cover today, first, what are passwords? The biggest problems that come up with passwords, the do's and don'ts of passwords, how we're going to be creating some easy and secure passwords, and where to store those passwords. First off, a disclaimer, please do not verbatim copy any of the passwords mentioned today. While they are good recommendations for passwords in terms of subject type, the passwords themselves aren't secure just from the fact of me saying them out loud on camera going onto the internet. So please use the technique, but not the exact password. So what are passwords? Well, they're a layer of security we have for our online presence. They're how we get in. They're the key to our house. They're the knowledge to prove who you are. They are only a single layer of security, so they're not everything. And we've talked about that in the past webinar, and we'll talk about it again in the future about the concept of multi-factor authentication, or MFA. But today, we're just going to focus on the passwords. So, why do we use passwords? Well, we got to protect our online resources. Your email, that's a pretty obvious one that everyone knows. Your bank information, and actually your money now with online banking, very important. And protecting your own online self. Passwords hold access to key information about us, key information that can be used against us. So we want to protect that as well. So some of the problem with passwords today, they're not actually a frequently hacked thing. I know people say, oh, I got hacked, someone hacked my password, but that's not actually the most common thing to happen to passwords. More often they're stolen from us or discovered. And I'm going to explain that difference. So, and I'm going to do it with an example. So one of the most common ways that passwords are stolen from us is a concept called phishing. I'm not going to go too far into it, but I'm going to give an example from actually when I was younger. So we all had Facebook way back in the day. And I think you've all seen someone before say, don't answer any of my past messages. I was hacked. My Facebook was hacked. That didn't happen. Here's what actually happened, and what happened to me when I was younger. I chose a fairly moderately good password for my Facebook. It had email, let's call it ben@email.com, and I had a password that was Ben is the coolest, and that was my password. Not a bad password. Kind of long, maybe could use some numbers and characters, but pretty good password. Great, nobody has access to that. Then I decided to sign up for this new shopping site, let's say. Never heard of it, a friend said, hey, check out the shopping site. It's this Chinese shopping site. They give you stuff real cheap. And I did that, and I used that same email, ben@email, and that same password, Ben is the coolest. Not a problem, there's nothing to link them. Well, maybe that shopping site I went to wasn't the most on the level shopping site. Or maybe it wasn't even the shopping site I thought I was going to, but a clever page set up to look like that shopping site. I've just given away a combination of email and password. Now, whoever wants to do anything with that, if they have it, can try it on a ton of sites. Is that Ben's email address password? Maybe, maybe not. Is that Ben's banking password? Not this time. He's too young to have banking information. Is that Ben's Facebook password? It is. We're in. And now they've got my Facebook account and they can do whatever they want with it. Maybe they can trick other people to giving up their information. So that's an example of how a password is stolen, but that's not getting hacked. So I want to talk a little more about passwords, but I want to say one other problem we have with them. They're annoying. I think even us in tech can say they are annoying. Every time you're challenged to make a new password, you're like, I got to come up with something new. I got to think of something new. I got to answer and put the exclamation mark and a capital and a letter. I'm never going to remember this, so then I end up using the same one I always do. That is a problem, and that's what we're trying to solve today. All right. So first off, the don'ts of making passwords. Don't make it too short. We're going to talk about what too short is, but think about length. Length is an important factor. Don't make it too simple or easy to guess. That can be a variety of things, very obvious words. That's your password. That's your first and last name. Those are easy to guess. Don't reuse it. I just gave a story of reusing a password, and you can see what happens. And don't share it. I mean, this one's obvious, but if you're sending it out, A, that person that you've given it to now can do a lot of things with. They can see if that password was used elsewhere. But also B, you've just sent that information out, maybe in an email or a text. Lots of opportunities for someone else to intercept that, and now they have your password again. So, first off, don't make it too short. Now, what is too short? Well, that changes every year. The reason short passwords are a problem is, one, they're easier to guess, but two, they're easier to brute force. Now, a brute force of a password is basically a computer trying to a ton of different combinations to get in. So this here is a chart of, in 2022, the amount of time it takes to brute force a password, roughly. It depends on equipment and available technology, but this is a good starting point. You can see we have a whole bunch of these versions. We have the amount of characters, we have if it's just numbers, all the way up to if it's super complex with numbers, uppercase, lowercase, symbols, all that. And you can see that we're pretty used now to the 8-character password. It's kind of a standard. And you can see if you have an 8-character password of even just lowercase letters, people can crack that instantly. The amount of computing power to just figure that out by trying a million different combinations, just like that. But if you start getting up the complexity, start adding numbers and upper and lowercase letters, it gets harder. Still not great. And you can see everything there, purple and red, really not a good time. If someone can get my password in, even for the most complex with 8 characters, in 39 minutes, if they want it, they can get it. Here's numbers only, of course, so even the most complex, long numbers only, very easy to guess. You're not trying that many things. So that's going to be a problem with going too short. Let's talk about easy passwords, simple to guess, commonly used, and how they're attacked. So hackers try to guess passwords frequently, and this is called a dictionary attack. Basically, it's a grouping of words, of common passwords, to try to just guess what they are. So first and foremost, here's some of the most commonly used passwords ever. This is according to Microsoft. There's 12345 password, a bunch of zeros, ABC123, all very common ones. Now, even if you get a little more uncommon but complex from this, if you're still using just a single basic word, if my password is soccer, you can see I was a soccer player, still pretty easy to just come up because they're common, used, obvious words. So I'm going to show you something that's, I think, a little bit of information that's useful. This is a representation of a password spray. So what it is hackers just spreading out on certain of the simple words that we saw before, those simple passwords, and showing they're attacking. And this is showing how much in like a single day someone might attack for a certain password. So you can see a lot of these passwords were tried 4,000 times, and some of the more common ones were tried up to 10,000 times. Just boom, trying it over and over, different account, try this password, and you'd be surprised how often that works. Passwords are frequently guessed by hackers. Like I said, dictionary attacks are common. Also, other easy to guess things, specific details to people. If they're attacking you specifically and your password is the day you got married, easy to look up. I just go on your Facebook. Family or pet name, again, easy to look up. Test it, and if I'm right, well, now I also know some of your security questions for your bank, like your pet name. Other things, your company you work at, all information that I can just, if I know who you are already, and that's pretty easy to find out, and I want to get into your account, I just look you up. I just look up information about you and try a bunch of stuff. You shouldn't be reusing your passwords. So yeah, we know this, we do it all the time. This is especially common if you're forced to reset your password frequently. It's why we've often moved away, as IT professionals, moved away from that, making you reset your password all the time. If you had let's say it was password 1, it's not going to be, but if your password was password 1, you got told to reset it, and you made it password 2, you haven't improved anything. That will get found out just as easily as if it was the same password. If you're compromised with password 1 and suddenly that password changes, rest assured they're going to try a few other variants on that. They know how people work. And this doesn't just go for number iterations. This goes for, changing the season from winter to spring to summer each time it changes, a month. All those iterative processes, don't reuse them. And don't share it. Yeah, I talked about not sharing your password, and I think it's pretty good reasons. You don't know who could intercept that. You don't know what people will do with it. And also, even if it's someone you trust, You can trust them not to do nefarious things with your accounts, but can you trust them to be as secure with your password as you were? Probably not. So when you've come up with a good password, don't share it. Then you have to come up with another new one as soon as you find out you've done that. So now the do's. Let's not be negative. Let's talk about what you can do. Well, the opposite of too short, make it long. Keep it secret. Keep it secret to yourself and use a wide range of characters. So none of those all zeros or all one type of thing or even patterns that are obvious. These are the things that you really can do to make your password better. And I'm going to expand on those a little bit. Okay, so we've looked at this chart before, but here's some more complex passwords. We're looking at this longer range. So we saw 8 characters, still not that great. What about if we go up to 14 characters? Well, at 14 characters, I'm looking up the chart here, and we're looking at, with just lowercase letters, pretty simple, 4 years to crack. That's pretty good, and you might think, I'll change my password before 4 years, but you want to do a little better than that, because computers get faster all the time. It's 4 years today, but a year from now, if you're still using that same password, that's suddenly down to, let's say, 3 months. And that happens and happens. So let's go for a little better in this chart. Let's make an example. Let's go for 16 characters, upper and lowercase letters. What are we looking at? 173 million years. That's better. So it's length, but it's also complexity. And I think we're going to show the next where you do want to target is a little more in that right lower half. The 14 plus characters, the at least upper and lowercase letters. If you can, throw in some numbers or special characters there, and you've got a good password. Okay, so we've got 2 methods, and they're confusingly labeled. One is the correct horse battery staple method. And this references a fairly well-known comic in nerd circles, and I'm about to share it with you guys. But the second is I'm going to try to get this right, the Bruce Schneier, I think I got that right, method. And Bruce Schneier is a kind of well-known guy in computer circles. You don't really have to know who he is, but these are our 2 methods that we're going to be taking on. So first off, the correct horse battery staple. What is that? Well, it is an actual representative password of what you're going to try to make. Or in this case, we're talking about passphrases. Now what passphrases are is a number of individually simple, easy to remember words that have no specific connection to them, but are combined. So how do you make a 16 plus character password and remember it all? Well, if you're doing something complex, it's going to be quite hard to remember. But if you're taking 4 individual words, you remember a word is easier to remember a single character, so it's not really any harder. So how do we get to that? Well, first I want to give an example of, if we go on to the next slide there, we've got a troubadour, a word that we've replaced. We've put capitals, we've replaced numbers, we've put in special characters. And you can see, I think it's 11 characters in there. 11 characters, it's hard to remember. You got to remember the order of everything, what you swapped in and out. Okay, the O is a 0, which was capitalized. It's really hard to remember. And the thing is, well, it is complex, it's short. It isn't that hard to crack over time, given the time. This one's not bad. I'm going to say this one's not bad. It's 11 characters, pretty good. If it was 8, not so good. 11, not bad. And going to be really hard for someone to get from you. But you probably won't remember it either. You're probably going to write that down. You're probably going to reuse it because it's a good password. So what do? Well, we take 4 random common words. We commit the pretty easy to words to remember because you've already memorized it. Correct horse battery staple. It's catchy. It's unique. Yes, I'm not going to remember that immediately, but I've come up with that. So if we go back a slide, we'll talk a little bit. So this is where you don't have to worry as much about like an algorithm using a dictionary attack. A dictionary attack, again, like I said before, was, let's go through words of the dictionary, or words that are put together. These are random. So yes, they're in the dictionary, but the complexity of guessing all 4 of these words in order, it's truly insane. This will not get cracked. But again, don't use this specific one. Like I said, nothing said here. You should not use it. And also, how do you remember this password? Well, I'm going to talk about some memory techniques about that, but I'll just say the simplest one for me is I just make sure I enter it. It's like doing math homework. You do it a bunch, and then it's committed to memory. So when I make a new password, what I do is I come up with correct horse battery staple. Great. Now, for one day, I'm going to log out and log back in a bunch of times throughout the day. And what that does is both fits the memory part component into my head, but it also, my fingers remember it. If you type a fair bit, you'll notice that like words, your brain, you don't even think about what you're typing. You just get used to typing that. So doing it a couple times in a day is going to commit that to memory. All right, we're going to, I think, do a practice run on making that. So let's give it a go. So what do we got in this room? Examples picked because they were already in. We've got a plant behind me. We've got a little bit of sunlight coming through. You can't see it super well, but sunlight coming through the side window. I'm on a table and an object. Got a marker. Boom, 4 things. Plant, sunlight, table, marker. I got to say that a few times to remember it. What does that look like as a password? Well, let's see. You got sunlight, table, plant, marker, table, plant, sunlight, marker, marker, table, sunlight, plant. Whatever you want, it doesn't really matter. Those are 4 unrelated concepts. And I just have to say that to myself a couple times. Commit it to my memory. Maybe I, for a day, leave those things around my desk so I kind of am prompted, and you'll have it. Pretty easy, quite complex. I'm not sure the exact characters. Oh, there we go. 24 characters in this password. Well beyond the chart. If we're just talking upper and lower case, we're already going past 18. We're at 467 billion years for 18 characters. This is 24. This isn't getting cracked. So the only way you're getting this one stolen from you is if you give it up somehow with one of the other methods. So again, I want to really remind you and just think about that. Take a number of words that are relatively unrelated to each other. 3 is a good starting point. 4 is great. You should aim for 4, but 3 is good. Make sure it's at least 16, 18 characters. Combine them, make them unique to you, commit them to memory. All right, the Schneier method. You've probably heard something like this before. This is about taking a phrase, converting it, maybe making an acronym, or it's kind of like mnemonics. So if we go to the next slide, let's take a phrase that's going to mean something to you. I call ClearBridge when my laptop stops working. That's a phrase that's easy to commit to memory. You know, I just say it a few times in my head, repeat it, it's in my head. I call ClearBridge when my laptop stops working. All right, so how do we do that? Well, we're just going to take 1 character from each of that, abbreviating, substituting, so let's see what that looks like. ICCBWMLSW. Great. So you'll notice we did ClearBridge as 2 letters, CB, but great. How long is that? 9 characters. Not good enough. It's 10 seconds to crack. We can do better. Now, let's throw some capitals. Start of a sentence, capital I. Boom, capital there. ClearBridge, proper noun. So, capital CB. And let's take one of the words, maybe the noun of the sentence, and make it all capitals. So, capital I, C, capital CB, WM, laptop all caps, SW. 14 characters, still just upper and lowercase letters, no extra complexity, 64,000 years to crack. Just like that. It's just that easy. If we want, we could do one better. What's that look like? All right, we've got the classic @ symbol swap, the 0 instead of an O, and that's it. We've just gone from, what were we, I think 64,000 years to, I think this is misaligned, but we've gone over 200,000 years. Maybe a little overkill, but we did great there. So there's always things you can do. You can do this iterative process in making it. All right, so we've got 2 methods, the correct horse battery staple method and the Schneier method. I hope you guys can remember those. I'm going to repeat those words a few times to try to like really get them in your head. But those are both great password making methods. And again, how to remember passwords, I like just doing them a lot in a day. I commit them to memory in one day. I say from the start, I make the password in the morning and I say, okay, I had to do this. I spend all day memorizing it. And that way, by the time I come back the next day, it's in my head. And then I just make sure I enter it a whole bunch. So, you know, don't use your remember this computer, remember this password option when you first make a new password. You will forget it, or you'll end up writing it down. And that's what we're trying to avoid. So I call it the use it or lose it technique. You can call it whatever you want, but that's what I do. All right, let's talk about storing passwords. First off, and I've seen this all over the place, where should you not store your passwords? Well, sticky notes. It is the easiest way to give up a password. And it's not just your coworkers you have to worry about. Most of you guys probably have, at times, people in your building that don't work for you. A contractor coming by, someone doing work, cleaners. These get lost all the time. The sticky note doesn't have to stay on your monitor. It could just get picked up and taken outside. It could get swept up into the trash. Stop using sticky notes. Almost as bad is Word and text documents on your computer. In fact, sometimes they're worse because the person doesn't even have to come on site. If someone gains access to any part of your computer or you accidentally show it, boom, you've just given them a document of all of your passwords. Please, no more storing passwords in a notepad or Excel document. There's better ways, and I'm going to show you that in a bit. Same with a sticky note, a notebook, or any other form of written. It's not quite as bad as sticky note because it's not as obvious, but it's pretty bad. It's the same risk, really. And email. Right? We have to say this again and again. Email is not secure. When you send an email, there's very little stopping other people from potentially gaining access to that. It is not a secure method. It's not for storing secure data. And Jordan's telling me we have a video all about that, so that's going to get linked for you guys later. You can go check that out. All right. So, where can you store them? First off, memory. There's 4 passwords you should know. Your primary email. And your primary email is actually super important. This is probably your personal one for most of you, and then your primary work email. This is how you recover all your accounts. So if you've ever done that I forgot my password, it usually sends it to your email. So that's a password that should be unique and you should have memorized. Second, your bank account. This one's just too important. You need direct access to it. You can store that in a password manager, and we'll get into that later, but that one absolutely needs to be unique, secure, and think about it, it's your money. You don't want someone else getting in there. Your computer, that's also important. Just you have to log into it every day. You probably should know it. It should be secure. You don't want anyone acting as you. And remember, people on your account can act as you. You are responsible for actions taken under your accounts. And finally, your password manager. And this is what we're going to get into, the concept of password manager. But you should be able to remember that password, and that should be your most secure password you have, because that holds the keys to all of your other keys. So, password managers. They can hold an unlimited number of passwords. You just have to remember the one password of it. They also have abilities to generate complex passwords. So, well, it's great to have correct horse battery staple to generate a complex password. What if we had to add 30 of those? Well, my Facebook account, my bank account, my social media, other social media accounts, everything I log into, things I log into work. That's a lot. You're not going to remember all those. So, what we recommend is make one really good password and then use a password manager to generate the rest. What it's going to do is going to generate those random characters, the stuff you could never remember, and it's going to store them secured in a way that no one else can access unless they have that password. These are some common recommended password managers. We have LastPass, which is our personal recommendation. There's also Bitwarden and KeePass. I think all of them have free and paid options. Some of them might be paid. If you have any questions about that or about setting that up, feel free to give our support line a call and they can help you out with that. Okay, so let's review what we've gone over. Passwords are the layer of security that protect access to your information and you. You can't make your passwords too short, simple, or easy to guess. This is important. Remember that length. The short passwords are the ones that are easy to get. Don't share or reuse your passwords. I gave you my example of a phishing attack against me when I was younger. And that's happened to many people. The amount of times I've seen someone on Facebook saying, my account was hacked. No, you gave away your password. The 2 methods of creating good passwords, the correct horse battery staple method and the Bruce Schneier method. Don't write your passwords down. No sticky notes, no notepads, no text documents. Do remember your 4 important passwords: primary email, bank account, computer, and password manager. And please, do use a password manager. Okay, as I am wrapping everything up, we're going to have another webinar coming up, I think next month in April, and I believe it's going to be on multi-factor authentication. So we're going to be doing that. We also got webinars running all year, so keep an eye out. Thanks for coming. Thanks for checking this out. And as before, stay safe out there. All right, thanks everybody. I'm going to let you all go, and you all have a wonderful day. Bye.